listen, the whole thing comes down to a player being healthy long-term, a player fitting a style, a player having a work ethic.
Analytics.
It's analytics.
Right. In the NFL guys, they're not showing their hand.
No, they're trying to convince you to do something you want you to do so they can get the guy they want.
Yeah, they're guessing.
Yeah, 100%. And welcome to this edition of the 941 Sports Zone. I'm John Massoni, here with my co-host at the far left of our table here today, John Peacock, and with our special guest and hopefully continual contributor to the 941 Sports Zone, Josh Grant. And thank you, Josh, for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Anytime you need me, I'll be here.
And John Peacock, obviously, always a pleasure having you over there on the other side, giving your insight into everything about sports in and around our local area and beyond that as well. So with that, we always do a little recap of our show from last week, kind of going over maybe some of the things we predicted and see if they came out correct, and maybe a little rehash of what our conversation was with Trey Burton last week, which was about NIL, which is obviously a name and likeness. And Josh, I'll give you the opportunity first to maybe even give a little insight into what your feelings on NIL are, since it's a controversial and very sort of topical conversation right now.
First of all, y'all are killing it on social media. I mean, on the Twitter accounts and all the clips that are being posted, it's going everywhere.
Well, Massoni's on fire. I said last week I had to take an ice bath, but you're on fire.
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying to remain on fire too. So we'll see how that works.
I don't know your next one. I don't know.
I got one hanging out there for this weekend, so
That's
I have to do a second one
sure
too.
How that's
so
turn out.
if I do a double one, that would be.
I'm just not sure how that one's going to
Does
turn out.
that mean I would double up my social media hits? I don't know. I'll have to see. And your opinion on NIL? What do you think it's all about, or how good it is, or whatever you think about it?
You know, it started with UCLA. If you remember Ed O'Bannon back in the mid-'90s, this is how this whole case started. It was on the cover of the NCAA basketball game, and he sued along with a bunch of older players for basically the rights to their name, image, and likeness. They want to get paid for their name, image, and likeness. And now, you know, if the NCAA, if that's where it's going to go, then they should be paid for their name, image, and likeness through the NCAA, but not by Pizza Hut, and not by this and not by that. I think it's just gotten way out of hand, and it's putting a lot of money in kids' pockets who may not know how to manage it, who may not know what to do with it, and it's just going to only continue to roll, I think.
And John, you remember Trey was saying about how he's now involved with Florida Victorious, which is the collective for the University of Florida. And I think that's kind of what they are trying to do. They're trying to give our athletes, and to the opportunity to
some guidance.
Some guidance, because otherwise it can be something that can get off the rails. Getting with the wrong characters in some cases, you never know who's going to approach you in your senior year of high school, whatever it may be. So it's definitely something that's going to be a work in progress for a while. We did kind of all agree that I said, "What crystal ball at 5 years from now?" And it's like, yeah, there'll be some control over this in 5 years. If it's going to be a constantly evolving scenario, I think that's probably what it'll end up being. But I think at least at that point, there'll be some sort of rules and guidelines in place to take care of all that.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of control, because then what incentive does a player have to go to the next level if they're making a pro contract kind of money in college? I mean, but if it's out there, go get it. Don't hate on them. Just go get it.
Free enterprise at that point, no doubt. Second thing I wanted to bring up from last week is our predictions. And last week I made a prediction that the Lightning would split the first two games against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that did actually come to fruition. I hate to say this, because I'm a big Lightning fan. I like the Lightning a lot, but I was kind of rooting against them in the second game.
Well, like you said, you're on fire. I said last week I needed to take an ice bath, and
you got to protect the pick. Exactly.
Because I was 8 of 9 with the lacrosse. Even though I'm not a big lacrosse fan, but I was 8 of 9, and you were, you're 100% right now.
So yes,
since we started,
and as obviously later on in the podcast, we'll be able to do some more predictions. I've got one hanging out there that goes into this weekend, and one sort of add a little local flavor to a secondary pick as well for prediction for this upcoming draft coming up on starting on Thursday evening. So we will definitely do that. Once again, this is our guest, Josh Grant. And Josh, you're here, and I think I'm probably going to make you our go-to baseball guy for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
I know you're a big baseball fan. You always have been. But locally, you were the PA announcer for the Stone Crabs. a couple years back, and you've been the PA announcer / DJ / whatever they need you guy up for the Tampa Bay Rays
since 2009. I was at Charlotte Sports Park, mainly in the minor leagues, PA DJ, do the same thing for spring training, kind of help run the show. And now I spend most of my summers at the Trop. I spent all spring up there, and it is an exciting time in St. Pete right now.
And absolutely, and we'll get into that when we talk about our Rays and how.
Do you get to go up there now? Are you up there at all now?
Yeah, I was up there this past weekend.
Like working?
Yeah.
So you got brought up.
I got the call up.
Right.
I am now in the
good.
major leagues.
Yes.
Yeah, right up to
lowest
St.
salary on the
Petersburg
payroll.
Well, way to go. Wrap it up. Major leagues.
With that, we're going to talk a little local to start off with, which is obviously for us local. It's the Venice area in particular, in Venice High School baseball. Venice High School baseball, I would say probably for the better part of the last 16, 17 years at least, have been the perennial power in and around our 941 region. They've won multiple state championships.
Six state championships.
And Coach Faulkner, who is a 1983 graduate, as well as I am from Venice High School, has done a magnificent job putting together teams. And one thing I'll say about Coach Faulkner, and his style of play really hasn't changed with all the success. He's still a guy who likes to put pressure on the base paths and multiple pitchers, and does a really great job developing young talent. With that, I know also there's a lot of young talent on the team this year. Give us a little review of what's gone on so far this year.
It's been an up and down year, but again, like you said, a lot of young talent. Before Coach Faulkner, six state championships, just Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah.
Just runs an incredible program, great coaching staff around him. Always have those guys ready to play. It's been an up and down year, but it's a lot of youth. They're very, very young. In the years past, you've had at least 6, 7 seniors that you can count on. This year, there's 5 seniors. And the majority, the meat of the team, you've got a freshman starting in center field. The only other freshman to start in center field or really start in center field for Venice was Michael Robertson, who's now draft eligible and could be drafted in the first 3 rounds in the MLB draft coming up in a couple of weeks. So we got Carter Cox starting in center field. You got a young battery. You got young pitchers. Jackson Lucas is a sophomore starter. He's turned into the number 1. So a lot of the games that are winnable next year, they struggled with this year. Plays in the clutch, making good reads on the base paths, making good pitches when they need to. So the future is extremely bright. But Thursday we play the last regular season game against Naples, and district tournament starts on Monday.
Coach Faulkner is about fundamentals and about being on the base paths, being heady as a player, knowing where you're at in situationally. And again, he also is a guy who loves to put pressure on the defense. I mean, I've been to multiple Venice High School baseball games, and what do you see? Leadoff hitter draws a walk. Second guy hitting second might be hitting 400, but he's dropping a bunt.
Absolutely.
And they're going to advance him over to second base, and then that guy's ready to steal third, and all of a sudden you 1 out, and you've manufactured a run without even a hit in a lot of cases.
Well, it's a true team effort with them, and he's come up with a new strategy over the last week that we can talk about here in a little bit with his pitching staff that has really kind of thrown off the offenses that he played against. Did it last night. So district play starts on Monday. We're the number 3 seed in the district. Northport's the number 6 seed. Currently, we're number 12 in the region. So, got to win districts. Got to win districts to move on in the region and hope for a deep run. But again, the district, that Monday night, the fans need to come out. The broadcast is available, facebook.com/Venice High Baseball and youtube.com/Venice High Baseball. But there is nothing like, and as much as I despise the song Sweet Caroline, and there's a reason why I despise that song, there's nothing like coming out to a Venice Indian baseball game.
Yeah, it does. And John, you can understand what we're talking about in the region, being 12th in the region. That's not a good spot to be in, because it's just like any other sport, football, whatever. You've got to now earn your way in. You just can't go in there and drop a district runner-up in there and be getting in.
I think traditionally, Craig's teams have been known for playing very well in the postseason and when it's late in the season. So, there's always a chance, and obviously with his experience and as far as his teams have gone in the past, like you gotta kind of like him anyway. Yeah,
as a coach, I mean, I know you're going to say no, but is there ever a time you look back and say, well, this was just 1 year out of many, kind of a glitch? I know that's not what you go into any season thinking, or you don't want to ever put that mindset in anybody's mind. But does that catch up to you at some point in time where you're like, hey, you know what, this was the one year that ball didn't bounce our way, and now we are looking on the outside, looking in on something like a district championship or even a regional championship?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had those years starting off. We weren't always where we're at now. You know, we had the years when Manatee was number one team in the country, and playing those type teams early on in the second round. You know, there was a stretch of 6-7 years where we were exiting the second round every year because, you know, we were playing Manatee, who was
just had it all together.
Had it all together at the time, and then we end up, you know, getting out of their way, and then we had to play an Armwood team who was in the same type of team. Yeah,
no doubt. Obviously, Venice is close to our heart here, but other area teams that I know that you've seen. I did see that as far as national rankings was concerned, that Sarasota fell into a little higher ranking as far as national ranking around from the area. Anybody else that stood out to you in particular?
Well, and we'll stick on that, and that's the part that's so frustrating about this situation is the Indians are 2-0 against Sarasota this season, and the one thing that's holding them back right now as the 12 seed is both Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch are ahead of them seated in the region. So if the Indians don't win it, one of those two teams are going to, and those two teams are likely going to play if the Indians don't get there in that district championship. So that kind of is a roadblock. Sarasota, the Indians beat them 1-0 earlier in the season, and an 11-1 a couple of weeks ago at Cool Today. They're a very beatable team. They didn't play much of a schedule. The Indians have played the ninth most difficult schedule in the entire state. Calvary Christian, Parkview, Georgia, Tampa Jesuit, and a couple of those games were winnable. So the season really kind of comes down with the Indians to 4 games. The loss against Riverview, that was a 5-4 loss. Riverview finished 8-15. Cardinal Mooney 7-6 after he 10-run ruled him a couple of weeks prior. Lakewood Ranch, again, they're the number 1 seed in the district. They have the bye, and then ODA. Those 4 games, those 4 very winnable games, would have changed the entire complexity, the entire makeup of the season and where they're at right now.
And a lot of times, what it comes down to, especially in baseball, when you've got, you know, sometimes a pitching matchup. Baseball is it's a difficult, you know, you have to you don't know who you're going to face. You can face the 8th seed in the district or in the region, and they got a guy who just throws heat and junk and whatever else, and you can't hit him. But they're going to the other 3 games they play after that, they're going to lose because that guy is that one guy, and you face him that one time. And so that's got to be a big hurdle, and that's why I think Coach Faulkner's style has played well, because when he does face that guy, he's not trying to go up there trying to hit home runs. He's trying to get guys on base. You know, I think that's a big difference.
And that staff is constantly working. I was texting back and forth with pitching coach Tyler Shambora today. He had the whole thing broken down, and you talked about the pitching situation. So I didn't even know this, that there is a rule in baseball and I've seen over 1,000 games, not trying to give you my credentials, but I've seen a lot. There's a rule that, he threw this out a week and a half ago and then did it again last night. Comes in with a righty starting on the mound. It's bullpen day. So there's a rule. It's like 5.02-A725 that you can sub out your starter for a player on defense as long as that starter goes and plays on defense.
Right.
And as provided that substitution doesn't throw more than 8 warm-up pitches, then you can bring that pitcher back into the game. So what he was doing was, and last night, the 6, 8, and 9 hitters for Parish Community were lefties. And so he took his righty out, Simon Yoakum, who was throwing really well, puts him in left field, shifts his left fielder over, brings his center fielder in to throw that inning against those lefties. And then the next inning, flips it right back. I didn't even know that. I'd never heard that was even a thing.
I know you can do, back in the day of the double switch, you could do certain things.
Right.
If a pitcher was able, you could hide him somewhere.
But you can do it once per inning.
Oh,
you can do this once per inning.
Really?
Yes.
Multiple times a game.
Multiple times a game. You can do it every inning if you want.
But
if your lefties are down in the order, you don't want to be
doing
that every single inning, because then the score is going to be.
It's a little more complicated than what you're saying, because you got to make sure you're doing all the right stuff. Well, you're around Coach Faulkner. Is he in the lab cooking up this stuff, or where is he coming up with these ideas?
I'm sure they work hard. Like Coach is saying, they do work hard and put a lot of time in. And like I said, I would be surprised if they don't make a run for it and show up when it's playoff time.
And honestly, you're sitting here listening to us talk about this. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, when will we be talking about them going to play for the state? semifinals. They just you kind of expect it, and I think sometimes too. And you see the culture of everything, how it grows over time. I think people show up or the kids that are playing Venice High School baseball, Venice High School football, whatever it may be, they see the culture and they expect to do well. They expect to win, and all of a sudden they get there and they figure it out. Right now they're figuring it out, and all of a sudden they rise to the occasion, and all of a sudden you're not so much overwhelmed by the 99-mile-an-hour fastball or the guy who's going to be drafted to the MLB. No, we're going to go beat that guy. We beat a guy just like him 3 weeks ago.
They faced 3 guys who are going to get drafted against Cavalry, and then a couple nights later, take on a Tampa Jesuit team with Garrett Sheffield's son on it.
Yeah.
And could have won. Now, the Cavalry game ended up being a blowout. Things just kind of got out of hand, but they were in position at one point to take a lead, and then against Jesuit, they could have won that game. Next year, the year after that, with these sophomores, these freshmen who are playing, those are very winnable games, and those are games that they are going to win, but it takes time to develop. And that is a where they're playing at right now, where they're at, that's just a credit to the coaching staff and all the Venice coaches. I mean, I'm just saying that because you're in front of me, but the whole culture around Venice and the whole culture around the athletic programs is always just excellent, always trying to continue to build and achieve, and you're judged on your championships.
Yeah.
And Coach Faulkner has 6. Yeah,
no doubt. All right, we'll take a break right there. We'll come back after this little bit of break, and we'll talk about a very, very, very hot topic that's local to us as well, so statewide, national-wide as well, the Tampa Bay Rays and their continued success after a blazing hot 13-0 start. With that, we'll take a break. Be back here at Douglas Jeep in a little bit.
It's time to put some spring in your step during Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram Spring Sell-Down Event. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $279 per month during the Jeep Celebration Event. Or choose a new Wagoneer from $549 per month. Or get behind the wheel of a new Ram 1500 Quad Cab from only $359 per month during the Ram Truck Month. Don't miss the Spring Sell-Down Sales Event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Spring Sell-Down savings? Douglas does!
And we're back here at Douglas Jeep with the 941 Sports Zone and continuing our conversation with Josh Grant and John Peacock. And guys, about 10 days ago, we were talking Rays breaking the record for potential, or tying the record for start of 13 games in a row, and you kind of felt like, wow, there's inevitability of this. They're gonna go on a little bit of a losing streak. It'll plane out a little bit.
We knew it was going to stop at 13.
Well, that one we did feel confident about, but I think now the fact that they are, as of this day right now, 20-3, clearly the best team in Major League Baseball, and showing no sign of weakness. I would say, again, I'm not. That sounds like they're not the weakness, but they're still going out and playing winning baseball. You watch them, you feel confident that they're gonna pull it off. And facing the Astros, another great baseball team we currently speak.
Who's the manager?
Kevin Cash.
How long's he been there?
You can tell me that, Josh.
So Cash has been there since. I believe he's the longest tenure, other than Terry Francona in Cleveland. I think he's the longest tenured manager. I believe he's been there since 2015.
I was going to say 7 or 8.
So
yeah.
how much in baseball do they attribute that to the manager?
Nowadays?
Yeah.
A lot less than they used to, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would absolutely say so, yeah.
Why is that?
Because now everything is analytics. It's like, so you – hey,
well, doesn't he have to control the analytics?
Well, that's you can.
So and again, this is no insider information.
No.
This team is ridiculous right now. There has been no stumble. I thought so. Jose Siri got injured early. Jose Siri is their center fielder, fast. I mean, this kid he's coming around with the bat. He went out, and then Jeffrey Springs went out, who a lot of people picked to win the Cy Young Award winner. And you'd think and they had a problem with the number 5 starter, but. They just continue to reload, and a lot of it is because of the analytics. They have an incredible analytics team that can find these guys, these diamonds in the rough, and rework them, reshape them, and put them out on a major league field.
All the same?
Well, it's how you apply it.
Yeah. So the whole shift in baseball was started by Joe Madden and the analytics team. That whole thing was Joe Madden and the team was like, hey, we need to figure out.
All right. Well, doesn't everybody have that? They
do, but now it's outlawed. So. They just continue. Yeah, you can talk. We can talk about the new baseball rules, but it's every team, they're really the ones who've started it. So Red Sox current GM, Chaim Bloom, was with the Rays for a long time. I remember when he was an intern.
Yeah, they grow general managers at the Rays.
Hold on. Give me analytics for dummies. Like, what are we talking about? Like, it's a 2-2 count. Like, what's the analytics? Give me the.
I'll go real basic.
Are you talking about making the picks, drafting these players? What are we talking?
It's a lot of all that. But so let's say on the field stuff to start with, right? Which was Josh was talking about the rule changes. But so let's just say back in the day, you had a starting pitcher was going to give you 7 innings, no matter what, and you didn't have then you brought in maybe a guy in between that and a closer. That was brought into play. A closer was brought into play not to like the late 70s. I want to say like Mike Marshall from the Dodgers became the first real save guy out there, and then the Oakland A's under Tony La Russa sort of expanded that whole idea where it was situational. Now you're bringing a guy in from the bullpen to go lefty against lefty, even though like that right-handed guy might be the best guy in the world. That's the very, very early stages of analytics. Now it goes even deeper. You got 25-man roster. You're using the whole roster. So like you say, well, how come that guy played first base last night? Now he's playing left field. Well, it's because they want to keep him in a lineup. They're going to hit him at number 2 because he hits this guy really well. All these analytics, all these numbers and put into the computer, they know they have goes right down to percentages. Hey, this is the percentage of success if this guy's in the lineup. No matter how the manager feels about it, it's all about analytics.
You ever seen a red money ball?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically it. They can calculate how many. So the gist of Moneyball was the Oakland A's, which the movie was kind of misleading because that A's team was loaded. I mean, they had the best pitching staff in baseball.
No doubt.
They lost a lot of offense. Do it the way you will. They had to replace replace Jason Giambi, Johnny Damon with a multiple number of guys by their on-base percentage, so walks and hits. They can't recreate Giambi, but they can find more guys who can do the same kind of output that Giambi makes. So with the analytics, they can look at, and it's a 2-2 pitch. It's the bottom of the 7th inning. They know where this pitcher is going to throw, and they scout them. And there's video evidence. It is unbelievable what we can actually take a look at now. So one of the jobs I do at the Trop is I run with the headshots. So I put the headshots on the board. But there's also times they have a system called TrackMan, series of cameras and computers around the stadium that literally tracks every movement of the ball. We can then, right after a play is made, we can then put that on the jumbotron, saying that home run went 450 feet at a 110-degree launch angle at 107.8 miles an hour.
Right.
So they're able to really kind of take all that math and put the best 26-man roster out there.
And that is even talking about they know.
So you're talking more roster other than not your philosophy on how you're playing the game.
Well, that's their philosophy. That's their philosophy is finding mathematical edges with guys. So this guy might walk more, and this guy might have singles more. This guy might throw more first pitch strikes versus this one. So that's really they kind of just. It's a chess game, and the Rays are always one step ahead of every other team.
You even look at it going to analytics. Rays in the World Series against the Dodgers. And, gosh, I'm drawing a blank. But Blake Snell.
Yeah.
Killing it. Just dealing. And they pull him. Okay, everybody who's ever watched baseball since they were a kid are like, are you kidding me? This guy's going to throw a 2-hit shutout, and you just took him out of the game.
Even Blake, he did not look happy. If you can read words, he was not thrilled coming out of that play.
Analytics, right to that, and Kevin Cash. The managers of these teams, they're on board with this. I mean, I think if they're not,
how did it turn out?
Badly. But the idea was But here's
you go with it. That's your strategy. You don't want to deviate from the strategy.
Here's the press conference. This is what we do all year. This is how we got here. So why would we deviate from something, even though even though he's doing something that's off the charts? He's not being analytical. He's being beyond what he normally does. We just can't trust it. We trust the analytics better. And so whatever came out of the computer, and they said no. When he gets to this point, he's done. They followed it without even a flinch. And the thing is this, I'm not saying this could happen, but you're a manager and you go off analytics enough times and you start losing games, a GM's going to look at you and say, well, we can find somebody for a lot less money than you because the analytics say the manager only supposed to make this much money, and we're gonna find somebody else who will listen to us. And so that's the other part about the analytics. He's talked about the GMs and whatnot. Now you're looking, how much do you pay for a center fielder? How much do you pay for a pitcher? How many lefties do you need? Is it worth it? What's the value in trading this guy? We have to get 3 of these guys with this many points or attached to their name.
So are the analytics telling you? Are the analytics telling you like, hey, we need to bunt here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You need to steal here.
Yes.
Yeah.
It all boils
All
down
of it.
to this stat called WAR.
Right. That's it.
That's it. There used to be home runs, RBIs, low ERA, high strikeouts. It's now WAR, wins above replacement. If you give me more wins in left field than you do, you're going to play. That's pretty much what it is, and that's all. That's batting average. That's on base percentage. That's balls batted in play. BABIP. It's the amount of stats. I'll show you when we're done.
Statistically,
it's
back in the day, you'd say, "Oh, you know what? You want to have the team that has the highest team batting average."
So there's no abstract. There's no leadership. There's none of that is.
There's always going to be a little of that, but I can tell you that is that what the players are now generationally, these players grew up on analytics, so they're kind of okay with it. I would say. I mean, back in the day, you have players.
Well, that's what you got mad about with Florida. When they're running, it's 4th and 8, and they're running the ball.
So understand that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Just like I'm a Rays fan. When they pulled Snell, I was like, I wanted to go through the TV set.
My group chat was on fire. Absolutely.
And so therein lies. So everybody says, be calm, give it the right amount of time to marinate, and this guy will get it right. Okay. However, with that being the case, I mean, we use the A's as an example. The A's are still known for their analytics. It ain't working for them right now, and matter of fact, they're moving to Las Vegas to go play there. But
that's awful.
Yeah, it's and after so many years in Oakland and all the tradition there as well, it doesn't always work, but the odds say that it will. So you're looking at people that are saying it's easier for me to follow the odds or the percentages than my gut, and I think that's going to be an ongoing argument for decades if this is the way it's going.
I guess what I'm getting at is, so in baseball you're talking about analytics, but the Rays analytics may be different than the A's analytics
because they are the pioneers of the whole.
Who's the pioneers?
The Rays have in the last 15 years have taken this charge of being analytic because
who has?
The Rays have.
But someone's in charge of that.
The owner, in so many ways.
Well,
I think he's setting the tone.
It's the team. It's the people he puts in charge. Look, there's a dozen Harvard and Yale graduates working behind the scenes as these.
Really?
These baseball analytic guys that literally they're advanced scouts. There's a great one on TikTok. His name's Randall Kanemaru. Since you guys are blowing up on TikTok, he is the replay guy. So his job is to provide advanced scouting reports. He provides. So say the Rays are playing the Astros today. They started the series last night, tonight, tomorrow. They already have a report on the next series of who they think is going to pitch, who's going to play.
So everyone has their own analytics.
So everyone has their own analytics. Yes, these guys they call it the Rays way because the Rays have put so many guys from that staff into leadership positions on other teams. And I was mentioning Chaim Bloom. It's not working out in Boston.
No,
it's not working out at all. He tried to take that Rays way and. They're struggling, and they're currently last in the AL East, and it's not going to get any better for them.
So then in football, when they talk about analytics, everyone has a different analytic in football.
Yeah, and how they're going to apply it.
I thought they compiled everything from the start till the end and compiled analytics and had that's the analytics of it.
Well, let's just say like that with you have a first half and it's 14-7, you're down in the game, and here I come walking in with my little stat sheet. And you say to me, hey, how many times we ran it a lot in the first? I said, no, we didn't. We ran it 8 times. Really, that's what happened? That's almost a similar way with how analytics work. It's just the information you get, so you're not guessing on it. Kevin Cash could say like, man, I'm feeling it. And then somebody says, look, man, here's the stats. This guy, 70 pitches, he's done. He doesn't. Maybe give you 2 more, but he's not going to give you 20 more.
Right. But what I'm saying though, when you're watching an NFL game and it's like, oh, it's 4th and 1, and you're on your own 30, analytics say you got to go for it. Wow. But we're saying like everyone has their own analytics.
Yeah, no doubt. 2-point conversions. What's the sheet say?
But
right?
everyone has their own analytics.
So that's where the human component still comes in.
Right.
And that's why all these people are so hot about the electronic strike zone. You're still going to have a human umpire on the field. You're still going to have humans in charge of this
still a decision maker in that process.
So with the Rays, the leadership, Kevin Cash is just he's a steady guy. And when they get in the playoffs, if you've seen some of the sound bites, man, that guy will get you going. And regardless of the analytics, he's still a leader and he's still got this team. I mean, again, you and I talked off air about this. I don't have any insider information as to what they're doing. What you're seeing is what they're doing. They are just dominant on all sides. 93 runs, 93 run differential. AL East is the only division with teams above 500. Everybody else stinks. And the argument is that, well, they haven't played anybody. They swept the A's and they swept the White Sox and they did this, but they're beating them convincingly. If they're winning these games 2-1, 3-2, 4-1, but they're beating these teams by 5, 6, 7 runs a night.
Here's my argument to that. It's early in the year. They can say what they want about those teams.
Right.
But the reason those teams are 5-12 is because the Rays beat them 3 times.
Right.
If they didn't, they would be 8-9, and everybody's they're not that bad.
And
so
it is a long year. I mean, it's a 162 game season.
Yeah.
There's a long way to go. So jumping on the bandwagon now, you have to kind of temper that with they've still got over 120 games to play.
Right.
But the
I
start is
didn't
unbelievable.
mean to get us off
No,
schedule.
We're not at all.
good.
This is great.
I was just thinking Kevin Cash,
yeah.
maybe he needs to get paid. But obviously we need to pay the analytics guy.
Well, I think they do, and a lot of those guys are taking that analytics role and turning it into high-powered GM roles and getting paid millions of dollars.
Lawyers, accountants, all these guys with these major Ivy League school degrees are now being recruited to come do this analytics stuff in baseball.
So with the analytics side, rule changes. One in particular, with the Rays, they were the founding fathers of this, was the shift. And that they would shift guys. A guy who pull hits everything is a left-handed hitter. They move everybody over to that side of the field and say, left field's open if you want it. And guys couldn't do it. And so tell them about the rule change and how that's affected it.
Now, as far as they've already kind of adapted to it a bit. Now the infielders, everybody has to be on their side of the field, but the outfielders have now started to shift. So teams defensively have started to go, well, we know he's going to hit it here. We can't move the infielders, and there's a literal box that they can't go past. We're going to move the left fielder into shallow right field and leave left field open because you still got the shortstop and the third baseman there who might have to chase it down. But they cannot do an infield shift anymore. Now it's all outfield shift, and the game just continues to adapt. It just continues to roll. Everybody's freaking out. Personally, I didn't mind the shift. You guys are making $20-30 million. Go,
no doubt.
Go hit it the other way.
Right.
Learn how to hit it the other way. So I had no problem with it.
People would scream. Old-time baseball people, not even old-time baseball people. People in baseball would say, "Can anybody lay a bunt down the third base line? Because if you did, you'd hit 1,000."
I can't believe they would make that rule. That's unbelievable.
That's what people said. How do you make the but it's sort of working a little bit.
What it's doing, so all the other rules also, offense is up, stolen bases are up with the pitch clock. The pitch clock is the most magnificent thing. If you're not watching baseball yet, you need to because
that is great.
It is a fun experience now because not only are the games going faster, it's giving fans more incentive to pay attention. So I've seen them, and you can hear them in the stands counting down 5, 4, 3, and the umpire has a buzzer, or not an Apple Watch because that's what the Astros are doing. But
what happens if the buzzer is ball?
So the rule is the pitcher has 20 seconds to throw it from the time they get it after the previous pitch. If they don't throw it by 20 seconds, it's an automatic ball on the pitcher. If the batter is not ready to face the pitcher, literally standing at the pitcher and looking at him by 8 seconds, it's an automatic strike on the batter. Awesome. So our first, you could pencil in.
How many pickoffs they get? That's a rule on that, right?
So you get 2. They call it disengagements from the mound.
So what if you do 2?
2 what?
After you do 2 disengagements, now you can just take the biggest lead off you want?
Yep. And that's why stolen bases are up.
Oh yeah.
You can't. So they're actually trying to make it 1. So they've got it. The Atlantic League, which was a independent league. It is an independent league. They're kind of the test kitchen for MLB.
So if you make it 1, and you better dang well get them.
Ricky Henderson could steal 250 bases a season.
Absolutely,
now.
Ricky. He would be killing it right now.
If you make a pickoff move, you better get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. And so those things, like I said, the pitch count, you think about a football game, and because obviously we talk about a lot about football, but there's 40 seconds or 45 seconds in between each play, but that's a countdown, and you have to get that play off. You have to do whatever else, and so there's people are looking at the clock. I mean, you watch a football game like where they keep the clock in the corner so you can see what the time clock or the play clock is doing. That right there is you're 100% right. People can't stop watching that clock right now. It's right there where the on the TV you can
don't
watch
have to worry
it.
about that with us.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But the difference between the violation in football and the violation in baseball is 9 times. It could be a good thing in football to violate that time clock.
No doubt,
push it back a little bit. Baseball, there's really no benefit for either side. I mean, it could be bad for both sides, but there's no, like, a pitcher's not going to go, I'm just going to take my time and get an automatic ball. When in football, you could take that extra time because you need it.
I'm gonna give you 3 quick questions before we take our next break. First thing, do you think that the fast start by the Rays was helped out by the World Baseball Classic?
Absolutely, because you had so many leaders on these teams now getting into midseason mode at the beginning of the year. Arozarena in Mexico. He had a coming out party. He was the World Series ALCS MVP in 2020. He had a coming out party this World Baseball Classic. Wander Franco on the completely underachieving Dominican team. A couple other guys. I believe they had 6, 7, 8 players in the World Baseball
rookie
Classic.
card. Wander Franco,
yeah.
We talked about it before.
Save it.
Save that. Hold on to that.
Save that. Put it in glass or something. That's worth it.
And the naysayers, the detractors, there's no other good time to do it. You can't do the only other logical way to do the World Baseball Classic is like the NHL does in the Olympics. You take a 2-week break at the All-Star break. You have the Olympics, and then you go on for the rest of the season. You can't do it after the season because these guys have already thrown. Pitchers might have thrown 50, 60, 70 games. Mm-hmm. Guys have taken 300-400 at bats. So I love the World Baseball Classic. There's no better. I think there's no better exhibition event than the World Baseball Classic.
And just watching it.
How many games are there?
A lot.
Yeah, so there's pools. So there's pools. They play in Tokyo, they play in Miami, they play in Arizona, and they have usually 6-8 teams to a pool. And then the tournament just continues. It's about 3 weeks, I believe, 2-3 weeks.
It's a good
and
portion.
It's during spring training.
So a 3-week tournament.
Maybe it's right at that edge because
during spring training.
It's during spring training.
Okay.
So a lot of people are like, well, these guys aren't ready to go. You're not watching real baseball, but the pride in the country. If you watch Mexico play, if you watch the Dominican play, Trey Turner for the Americans was unbelievable.
Absolutely right.
Watching these guys pound their chest with USA on it. Doesn't get much better than that.
Because like a lot of things, the preseason / exhibition season, whatever you want to call it, has gotten to the point where like you're only going to throw it this many times. You're not going to play. Where back in the old days, you played your way into shape. This is what these guys did. They played their way into shape. They weren't only playing a couple of games and getting themselves. They went in and played hard baseball. I mean, playoff competition baseball for the early in the year, and came out of it. And a lot of guys on the Rays are playing down in that deal, and they came out like mid-season ready. I think it had a lot to do with it.
I got to play China when I was in Little League.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you guys were like big time.
Yeah, we were big time. We were 3rd in the world.
So, yeah, he
lost to China.
He was a baseball.
I didn't know that.
Like a savant. Yeah.
Yeah, lost to China. It was
We'll talk about his baseball.
No, we don't talk. We don't talk about that. I just.
Next question for you. Obviously, Wander Franco is the guy, but maybe a guy that we should keep an eye. Maybe an unsung hero is going to be a star for this team this year.
I will save that for my bold prediction.
Okay, perfect.
But as a whole, I mean, you look at the stats. They've got 4 guys right now hitting above 300. And a regular Josh Lowe finally coming into play right now.
Yeah.
5 guys hitting a 300 who are regular players. Yandy Diaz leading the team in home runs with 6. It has been a group effort. The pitching staff. We haven't even talked about the pitching staff. The 4 starters: Shane McClanahan, Drew Rasmussen, Taj Bradley, who was just sent down today, and Zach Eflin. 13-1.
I know. And that
it's just.
And remember, their pitching staff starters last year. They were doing the what was it?
The opener.
Opener.
That's still in play. That's the number 5 spot until Tyler Glasnow comes back. But that they're not eating up innings. So those guys are getting fresh arms on that opening day, as opposed to in years past where they have to chew up some innings. Guys are only going 4, 5, 6 starts. These guys are going deep into starts, deep into games, and coming out on top.
And last question for you in this segment: what's your beef with Sweet Caroline?
So to make a long story short, that is the Red Sox song. They play it in the bottom of the 8th inning, and Ray Sinabaldi plays it here at Venice, and I cringe every time I do it. I love Ray, but as I'm on the broadcast, I have to zone out and go to a different spot. So it was during a spring training game. It was a Red Sox and Rays spring training game, and I was not there. I was actually taking a teacher certification test. So I had my phone off. I come back from the test. I open my phone, and my phone is blowing up like never before. I'm getting texts, I'm getting messages, ding, 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 constant Twitter, some hate messages actually from people. Apparently the person who was in my place in the bottom of the 8th inning of a Rays Red Sox spring training game played Sweet Caroline at the Rays home stadium, and I got the blame for it.
Ooh. Okay.
I got blamed for it, and it wasn't even in my system. I didn't do it. I will never. I took it out of everything. Oh man, and I got.
Was it on purpose? It was a mistake, I would assume.
So I don't know. I can't accuse anybody because
cannot confirm this.
But it was definitely at the right time. And the Red Sox ended up coming back to win that game. It was a spring training game. I believe the Rays were up 9-1 in the 8th, and the Red Sox came back to win 10-9.
That's why that's more of the problem than the playing of the song.
Every time I hear it, I get goosebumps and I shudder.
No doubt. All right, with that, we'll take our second break of the night. Come back here on our national part of our show, and we'll talk a little NFL draft when we get back. Obviously, back in the day when it was a Saturday, Sunday event only, it was like a national holiday for me, at least. I would always spend the weekend watching the whole entire draft and enjoying that, but still something to watch, and it gets a lot of interest. So we'll come back here at Douglas Jeep and talk about the NFL draft after this break.
It's time to put some spring in your step during Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram Spring Sell-Down Event. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $279 per month during the Jeep Celebration Event. Or choose a new Wagoneer from $549 per month. Or get behind the wheel of a new Ram 1500 Quad Cab from only $359 per month during the Ram Truck Month. Don't miss the Spring Sell-Down Sales Event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Spring Sell-Down savings? Douglas does!
And welcome back to 941 Sports Zone. And here again with Josh Grant and John Peacock. And we're going to move our conversation forward from the very hot topic of the Tampa Bay Rays to the equally hot topic, especially for this week, which is the upcoming NFL draft. And guys, I think you've all been around long enough to see how this thing has blossomed into a unbelievable TV event for the NFL. I mean, back in the day, it was done at a hotel lobby. It was very, very clandestine. You could watch it if you were a real football nut in so many ways. But now you've got Thursday night is the first round only, and you got 3 different networks broadcasting.
Well, before we get into the draft, you're a big Jets guy.
I am.
So how are you feeling about Aaron Rodgers?
I'm feeling fantastic. And I'll tell you why.
What did they lose in the draft? I read something about it, but what did they lose in this draft?
So they lost a second-round draft pick that they picked up from Cleveland in exchange for Elijah Moore, a receiver who wanted to be traded from the Jets. So they traded down from 13 to 15 in the first round, lost the number 43 or 42 pick in the second round, but still have the 42 or 43 pick, the other one they have. And I think they lost maybe a late round 5th or 6th round pick too. I'm not sure about that.
Well, and then the second round next year,
right?
That could go to a first. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're 100% right.
That could go to a first if he plays 65% or less of the snaps. Is it more or less?
More. If he plays
65% or more of the snaps, that 2 goes to a 1.
Right.
Well, he is going to play 65% of it.
That's what you listen. So the hope is he plays 100% of the snaps.
Yeah.
And you're competing at a high level.
Who do we got at receiver for the Jets that can help him?
Starting with the Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year last year, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State had a super duper good year. You've got I'm drawing a little bit of a blank right now.
Alan Lazard,
who was with Rodgers.
He was with him, right?
So Aaron Rodgers said, "I have no weapons in Green Bay," and now the Jets signed his
the only weapon
they had.
Corey Davis is a kind of a steady sort of veteran guy. He may or may not be there. They have 3 good tight ends. They have a running back who would have been the rookie of the year.
Do they have an offensive line?
So of all the stuff you're going to talk about, they have the makings of an offensive line. Okay, they've got some guys that they've got 4 of their 5 starters back from last year, and the 5th guy didn't play because he's the number 1 draft pick 2 years ago, Mekhi Becton, who could be a superstar.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is phenomenal.
Yes,
Like he is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen play. Like he is phenomenal.
And the thing is this: so Rodgers, let's just say, his interest in the Jets had a lot to do with the makeup of the team, the coach. Listen, the Jets went out and got a failed head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, who was with Denver last year. I mean, a total failure. But he was the guy with Rodgers for maybe 4 or 5 years on the Packers. He was like his quarterback coach.
Right.
And the Jets said, even though he's a failed guy, he's coming. The Jets put him on the staff. They've given him the coaches he wants. He sees that the players around him are there. I guess the O-line being the one question mark. And a guy like Rodgers, I mean, let's face it, Tom Brady made the Buccaneers offensive line look really good a lot of times, left tackle in particular, because Donovan Smith was sort of suspect because he got the ball out of his hands in 2.1 seconds.
Aaron Rodgers is really he is phenomenal.
He's going to read the field. He's going to adjust the coverages. He's going to just the blocking schemes. He's going to do everything you need. He'll be running that team, and he'll make them significantly better. From a team that about 11 games in was 7-4 in the middle of the playoff hunt, and then the quarterback who was their young guy just lost it, and they had no answer for that. So it was the downfall of the Jets last year was 100% a quarterback problem.
Yeah.
So,
all right, I'm sorry to get off subject.
No, it's
So
fine.
you've forgotten more about football, and I'm man enough to admit this, that you've forgotten more about football than I know. Aaron Rodgers is the most overrated quarterback in the history of the NFL.
You have not watched him play.
And I've watched him play plenty. And is going to New York for his post-career plans.
Well, I totally believe that. But here's the thing.
No, he is.
Why else would he want to go to the Jets?
He is the most talented quarterback I've ever watched.
But is he a winner?
Yeah.
He's won 1 Super Bowl in how many years?
Those are hard to win.
I mean, I understand.
I look at this. I know that Rodgers has motivation beyond playing for the Jets.
I mean, he throws the ball. He puts it. It's just unreal, the things that he does with the ball. It's unreal.
Well, again, so I look at it from this perspective too. So if Rodgers gives the Jets now a stability at quarterback, okay, that's the bare minimum stability, because he's a 39-year-old guy, 18-year veteran. He's got all the things that go going into it. But what he does for the Jets now is he gives them a guy who can go out and win games for them. Okay, and so that being the case, you put together what I think they're going to put together. They're not going to say, "Hey, Aaron, you got to throw it 50 times to give us 400 yards passing." We're going to go still do what we were doing last year, which is we're going to play great defense. We're going to have a running game that is going to be more than serviceable. And what we need to do is for you to get the ball down the field and get us 24 points a game. Where I think in Green Bay it was like, okay, Aaron, we're not going to give you anything.
True.
Go out there and go out and win it for us. Run around like a maniac. Or whatever
because they know how good he is.
They did know.
Right.
And so I think if Rodgers, if he read the room right, outside of his personal reasons, but I know he has a ton of them. Trust me. I mean, what did he go into a closet for 3 days to kind of get his mind right, or ayahuasca?
He went to a pitch black house.
Yeah.
Like no light.
So
I'm sorry to get off subject. Right?
No, but it's a good subject,
Yeah.
especially with the draft, because there's a lot to lead into that conversation. If he does what you would hope he could do, now you look at it now when Buffalo comes into town and Josh Allen looks around and says, "Whoa, oh my God, it's Aaron Rodgers over there. It's not Zach Wilson." Right. If Tua Tagovailoa is not playing that great, and he brings a steadiness to the Jets that they didn't have before, and he puts them in the conversation. It's going to be a great theater from a football fan perspective, because every time he goes and plays Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Herbert or Lawrence or whoever it may be, man, that's the game to watch, and especially in the media market.
He's definitely been the biggest name quarterback Jets have had in a very long time, and brings a lot more exposure in that scenario. But what is Zach Wilson? Remember Zach Wilson's quote? whomever it is, I'm going to give that guy hell in practice every day.
Well,
how long before Zach Wilson is carrying his ball bag? Now
today, is the balls out today? It'll be today.
Yeah,
true.
Because I will tell you this, that's exactly what Zach Wilson needs to do, because humility is one thing he didn't have
100%.
coming into it. And, and so he needed to come in there, and he got humbled, but he didn't handle it right. And so now he's to go in there and watch how, and again, Aaron Rodgers, for his controversially as he's been for years, he was sit on the bench and did his and played his role behind Brett Favre. He didn't come out and wasn't sort of saying get rid of me or whatever, he's waited his turn, and so he knows what it's like. So looking at Zach Wilson, he can look at him and say, Zach, if you want to watch how it's done, I had to learn by watching. You have to learn by watching, and me being humble enough to know I wasn't ready.
Yeah, you look back at that though. You look back at that. I don't think anyone realized how good Aaron Rodgers was. I mean, you're looking at you're talking about Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers is behind him like he's the next person to take over. And then you're just kind of looking at Love and saying he's the next person to take over for Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Like, I mean, is Love that good?
Well, if Love is that good, the Green Bay Packers are geniuses.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, Aaron Rodgers is a really, really good quarterback, and I don't think people realized at the time when he was sitting behind Brett Favre how good he really was.
Right. There's no doubt about that. All right, NFL draft. So let's go Buccaneers first. Okay, start with the Buccaneers. Local team. Obviously, a huge shakeup. Tom Brady leaving the team.
The Tom Brady imaging is still at the stadium. I was just there 2 weeks ago. They still got all the Tom Brady signs out there.
I would imagine they're going to keep it there as long as they possibly
100%.
can. So there's a lot of things you can look at the Buccaneers that they obviously when you're going for a championship, they got some high dollar guys or veteran guys. They made some moves with, again, Donovan Smith not being kept around. The quarterback situation, Baker Mayfield coming in. Buccaneers, is the draft going to be a rebuilding draft, or is it going to be a draft where you're going to plug some holes and see if you can't get back into the conversation for the playoffs?
So I love the Baker Mayfield signing. He's struggled, but I also don't think he's had a lot around him. But they need an offensive tackle, period. Donovan Smith was a hole already there, so now with him leaving, there's a hole on the left side. You and I were talking before, do you move Tristan Wirfs from the right to the left? I don't think so. I think you keep him there. But the running game, I think, is a bigger concern, in this draft because Leonard Fournette aged 6 years last season. And
he did.
Keyshawn Vaughn, I believe, or Rashad Vaughn, did not pan out the way that they thought he was going to.
The kid out of USC, Rashad White.
Rashad White, excuse me.
Yeah,
Keyshawn Vaughn is also another back.
He is.
Rashad White. So I don't know if you can find a back in this draft, but I think first round pick, they definitely have to go offensive line.
And like I said, that'll be part of my prediction as well. That what the Bucs should do in that first round.
Is that what the draft predictors are saying?
Pretty much. They're everybody. You kind of look at an NFL team these days, and you can kind of see the holes. Hey, Tom Brady leaves as a hole. You got to fill it. You got to get a quarterback. Injuries obviously lead to that kind of thing, but a lot of times too with new coaches come where you think teams are going to head as
What's
far as
their
their
pick?
draft.
What number?
19.
Yeah, and they lost. Ryan Jensen was out for a while last season, the All-Pro center.
Right.
With Wirfs being out too, that left side has kind of been a problem for a while. So I think I know I saw a couple of picks, a couple of different guys that could be plugged into that spot, but the consensus was that they're going to take a tackle in the first round.
Yeah, no doubt. So Bucs, I think we're kind of but they are going to be in a situation where they're going to be rebuilding, but their division is always winnable or has been winnable the last few years. You got Carolina on a rebuild. Atlanta's, I can't get a feel for Atlanta. Look good in some games, look bad in some games. And then you have the Saints, which obviously going through a lot of transition there with the Saints as well. So we'll see. I mean, they could plug some people in there and get their way, but I don't know if they're even, no matter what they do, I'm not sure if they're quite a Super Bowl contender, playoff contender.
Yeah,
yes,
they could win the division, but now I don't think anything more than that.
With that, go back to the whole draft in particular. John, I'll ask you this in particular, this question. Quarterback. I mean, every year we go into the draft and we're talking about 4, 5, 6 guys that are potential number one draft picks based on what they did in 2 or 3 games in college or their measurables or whatever else it is. If you, obviously, the quarterback being a cornerstone to the team, what qualities would you be looking for in a quarterback as opposed to just, is there anything specific you want out of a quarterback at that level?
Everyone's saying Bryce Young
Right.
is the number one pick at
Right.
quarterback. He's 6 foot tall.
If that.
I mean, that's the measurables I've seen at the NFL Combine. Usually they're pretty.
Yeah, they're accurate.
They're pretty accurate. So 6 foot tall. The only really, really good 6 foot tall quarterback that I've seen in the modern era has been Drew Brees.
Correct.
I think Michael Vick was 6'1".
Yeah, I think you're right.
But I think, we're talking Michael Vick, who was also the fastest player in the NFL.
Right.
I don't think Bryce Young is the fastest player in the NFL.
No.
He does have good feet. He does a good job escaping the pocket, but I don't know. I just think I think it's nuts that that someone would pick him as number one. I think he's great now. He plays for my team. Alabama. I love Alabama, and I thought he was awesome. I just don't know. It just blows my mind.
Is he consensus number one because of Jalen Hurts?
No, he's consensus number one because they need a quarterback.
And
at the
that's
number one
another
pick.
thing that's blowing my mind. Like Jalen Hurts and college, like he wouldn't throw the ball.
Right.
No.
He was refused to throw the ball unless someone was wide open.
Right.
And they had a stable of receivers. So he's really turned himself around and produced himself as a great quarterback. He did a great job last year, and obviously he's getting paid for it.
Well, I'll ask you, and I'll say about Bryce Young. I think that he is football savvy. I think he's a guy that I think you interviewed him as a quarterback and looking beyond his height and his measurables and said, okay, this guy is a guy.
Well, I got to watch him in high school. They played St. Francis right before we did.
Okay.
So the St. Francis and the first one we played, the really good St. Francis team.
Yeah, with Blake Corum on that team.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And he was at the team in California.
Mater
Day. And he single-handedly beat them. Like he was a one-man show. And I was like, wow, that guy's unbelievable. No, they're like, well, he's going to Alabama. I said, well, Alabama's going to be really good for the next couple of years because he was unreal. I'm just not sure if that correlates to the NFL. I don't know.
I think it correlates to today's game. I think with the way that today's game is changing, he is now almost, if he's an inch higher, there's a whole nother conversation. But with his skill set, I think that's and his ability to try to develop like a Justin Fields is starting to get that development process going. I think that's where the NFL is kind of going. These more hybrid kind of guys as opposed to – I love Will Levis. I mean, that kid has all the measurables, and he could go anywhere from 2 to 20. It just depends on how the rest of the dominoes fall.
And I think, too, so I'll say something how I feel about quarterbacks coming out of college. I think there's got to be some number of starts that you've made in order to be somebody who's going to be successful, especially immediately on the top end side of things. And Bryce Young came in there and he started right away as a freshman, and you're at high level football and at Alabama playing high level competition. Now, mind you, he's playing with great players too. He's playing with a stacked deck.
Right.
But he was out there and he performed immediately. Okay. And he's got 30 something starts under his belt in the 3 years he was there. And you start looking at the rest of them. Levis is right on that line. He's got enough starts at Kentucky. But then you go into the rest of the pool, let's just say. C.J. Stroud obviously shows a lot.
Well, they said he had the worst
test grades
out of anyone.
Like it was like bizarre bad.
Right.
Like almost like he did it on purpose. Bad. And then you look at him, so you say, well, what is he at? And they start looking at the system. Is it Ohio State system? Because they haven't really hit home runs with guys coming out as high round draft picks at quarterback. I mean, Justin Fields, the jury's still out on that because he's running more successfully than he's throwing, and that's really not equating to being successful as far as long term is concerned.
Well, in his defense too, he hasn't had any weapons in Chicago, and now they've kind of reloaded this season. So hopefully with he'll continue to develop.
He's running for his life in a lot of places. But I will throw. So getting up with that, I'll go one more question from the quarterback perspective. Anthony Richardson. All right, so that's my guy.
That blows my mind too. Like
how high up? I mean, I've seen him as high as 5 to Seattle.
Pro Football Focus had him at 2.
See, and I've also know that they said the Colts are looking hard at him as well. obviously.
But he's a guy that tests off the charts, and everything he does, he's tested off the charts.
And they said interview-wise, as far as the actual interview, that's what they walked out of the combine are like, what's not to like about this kid except what we saw on the field half the games? Like, okay, he's a high character guy.
But you said you didn't like it because what was being called, and I was the same way. Like, we're watching some of these games. Like, why don't we just have a play that's designed for him to just run the ball one time?
Here's my tie back into what we talked about a little earlier. So if all these NFL guys are seeing what I saw, as a layperson, and what you see as a guy who knows a lot about football, and we see that. Why is not more being done with Anthony Richardson? My answer to that would be is that, well, last year was a throwaway year. Last year it was culture build. It was getting the team the way they want. You had 23 guys going to portal. You had 4 more guys going to portal after spring. It's a clean house scenario, and we're going to run it and play it the way I want to. Anthony, I'm sorry. This is how we're going to do it. And, I'll get my example going back. I've even said it on one of the podcasts before this. Was Steve Spurrier, who was the greatest Gator coach of all time, maybe the greatest Gator football anything of all time, had another guy right there ready to go, Emmitt Smith. And he said, Emmitt, appreciate you, but we're not going to need a guy like you. We're going to toss the ball around. You need to go in the NFL because you're going to waste your time here. And, Billy Napier didn't say that to Anthony Richardson because he couldn't. Because Anthony had eligibility left and he couldn't go in the draft. But I think a lot of the same thing happened. And I'm not comparing Billy Napier to Steve Spurrier, but I think that's what happened to Anthony Richardson. And I think now the best thing that happened to Anthony Richardson, I think he will go in the top 10. I really believe that the talent's too much for a team to watch him slide and go, no, we got to get that guy and let him sit on a bench.
He could do something else too.
Well, Atlanta needs a QB. You look at the top 10. You've got Carolina going to go quarterback, obviously. Houston. They'd be silly if they didn't take Levis. And the Vegas money's on Levis right now. Yeah. It just went from 40 to 1 to go 1. 40 to 1 to 4 to 1 on DraftKings. All that money just came in. Indianapolis needs a QB. Detroit, not sold on Jared Goff. May go QB, may not, may wait another year.
But he's a guy that you could Dan Campbell is a little different breed of coach. Right. But I think that he could say, hey, let's put a guy on a bench for 2 years and maybe until Goff, or maybe even a year. I mean, nowadays these guys are getting ready in a year.
And Falcons. Falcons are the same. Falcons need a quarterback too. So you got.
So what was your pick? 2 weeks ago?
So my rehash on my pick was there going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 10 picks.
4 in the top 10.
In the top 10. And I think that the first 2 are for sure quarterback picks. I think that if Seattle is going to go find the Geno Smith replacement, it's a guy like Anthony Richardson, then you go ahead and do that, and you get that guy now. And then I think you go from there. You go to Levis, but there's a couple other kids that may not sneak into the top 10, but there's some guys that they're talking about even like on the you watch the crawl on NFL Network and it says top 5 quarterbacks coming out, and Richardson's not even in their top 5.
How accurate are the
not very accurate.
They're not really, right?
No.
Listen, the whole thing comes down to a player being healthy long-term, a player fitting a style, a player having a work ethic.
Analytics.
It's analytics.
Right. And the NFL guys, they're not showing their hand.
No. They're trying to convince you to do something you want you to do so they can get the guy they want.
Yeah, they're guessing.
Yeah, 100%. Also, quick another about the draft. It's turned into, especially in the first round, it's turned into an offensive line, quarterback, maybe D-line. It's very heavy in the first round. Do you think that by being pigeonholed or being very position-centric in the first round is a mistake? Or I'm a big believer, give me the best guy on the board, whatever your board is, and you don't care what position it is. I've seen teams where I think the Baltimore Ravens were that team like, hey, that's our best guy. I know we got Ray Lewis at middle linebacker, but this guy's going to be the guy right next to Ray Lewis. What do you think? Are you about filling positions, or are you about the best guy?
Listen, if you don't have an offensive line and you don't have a defensive line, you're not going to win football games.
That's
bottom
true.
line. So if you're a team that we need a defensive lineman and you start seeing them go, I would think you might pick a defense lineman. Also a quarterback. I mean, there's three things.
Yeah. Well,
you need a trigger man, you need an offensive line, you need a defense line. And I don't care if it's Pop Warner, high school, it doesn't matter. You need those three things.
Well, and running backs are asked to do so much now, so much more than before. I mean, the longevity of a running back is 3 years in the league.
Right.
It's not just running; it's pass blocking. It's
and
pass
you never
catching.
know. I mean, you never know who's going to be a good running back.
And you don't want to pay a guy on a second contract because look what happens. They like you said, how fast did Leonard Fournette go downhill? Like it happened right in front of your eyes, right?
He went from playoff Lenny to what he was at the end of last year, just a broken down.
Yeah, I mean, there's no more Emmitt Smiths left.
No, and then that's not going to happen. One thing I will say though about running backs, why there's a lot of them that are available, guys aren't coming out with a bunch of carries in the NCAA anymore. everybody's got three backs,
right?
So guys are getting experience and they're finding a gem in the 6th round or the fourth round, and you can pay them. I say this: if I found a guy that in the 2nd or 3rd round, like I said, the Jets did with Breece Hall, guy was that he was relatively known, but wasn't coming out of college. I'd sign him today. I'd say, let's scrap that rookie contract. Let's get you paid. Let's make you happy for the next 4 years. And again,
well, that's what you see. That's happening in baseball.
The Rays,
the younger guys, and others too. Younger guys getting these big contracts because teams want to lock them up and keep developing them.
Lock them up, then they're not sitting out after the 2nd year or 3rd year. Build an escalated contract, whatever it may be, and give them some incentives to get there. And then you say, hey, you may only have a 5-year career, but you're actually going to make some money, make some life-altering money by doing that. I think the NFL. I mean, a lot of guys that may be way ahead of the game, but I think that's where it's going to end up because you just can't have a running back and then he goes for 2 years and he has his 2 great years, and then he sits out.
Right.
You want to keep that guy as long as you can. And then, like I said, obviously you said positionally, but quarterback, like you said, another position that this year in particular, tight ends this year in the draft are. There's some guys they're talking that there could be a few guys, maybe as many quarterbacks or tight ends as quarterbacks in the 1st round. I mean, If you see the same thing, kid out of Utah, a couple different guys where the tight end class is ridiculous, and tight end is becoming very prominent in a lot of offenses in the NFL.
Well, 10 years ago, it was almost like there was no tight ends in college.
Right.
I mean, when we had tight ends. And you'd almost, a recruiter come in like, hey, do you guys use a tight end? And the answer most of the time would be, no, we don't use a tight end because everyone's going to the spread. Now everyone's coming back now where they're using 2-3 tight ends in a set to where now the tight end's back to being popular.
I'm going to give you a quick question back to the Buccaneers. Obviously, Tom Brady, great, all-time great, right? But how important was Rob Gronkowski to his success at that tight end position? And did Rob Gronkowski change the narrative as far as tight ends in the NFL because he was that effective?
Oh, absolutely, and he made the receiving core around him better. I mean, he was getting double teams that the slot guys were able to run around. Like he solidified that offense. You could say what you want about what Tom Brady brought to the Bucs, but I would argue that Gronkowski's impact in that Super Bowl season was much greater, and the loss was huge. Last year, the loss of him was not – you could tell it was a different offense with him not there because Brady's guy was not there, and he knew that if he needed to check it down to somebody or needed to go not to a receiver, that it was Gronkowski. It was going to be him every time.
Same for you? Think that's similar?
I'm a big Tom Brady fan. I wouldn't say he was more important, but I think he was definitely a huge part. There's no doubt about it.
When
I grew up, so I'm a giant Tom Brady fan. Like I grew up New England Patriots, Tom Brady. I remember when they stuck. I remember when he got hit in that play by Mo Lewis. But he solidified that position. But I don't think they win that Super Bowl without Rob Gronkowski.
Well, and
I agree, yeah.
And I'll say to you, so you had San Francisco in the NFC Championship, you had Kansas City in the AFC Championship, win a Super Bowl. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, probably the 2 best tight ends, or arguably the 2 best tight ends in the league. And there's something to be said about how good those guys are. I mean, you watch Travis Kelce, for as great as Patrick Mahomes is, he can throw it anywhere. Who does he go to when he needs to? Just like Tom Brady did in the day when Rob Gronkowski was the guy. He said, "Hey, I need 7 catches, and when I need to find you open when I'm in trouble. Just run a seam route or just do a curl in front of the safety or whatever it was." So I think tight end, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot. Watch the draft. When you watch the draft on Thursday, you're going to see probably 2 to 3 tight ends off the board in the 1st round. I see that as well. So All right, with that, we'll take our final break of the night, come back and do our very fun What's Bugging Me segment, and then, of course, the ever popular on social media prediction sort of our program. So we'll be back here at Douglas Jeep in a few minutes.
It's time to put some spring in your step during Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram Spring Sell-Down Event. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $279 per month during the Jeep Celebration Event. Or choose a new Wagoneer from $549 per month. Or get behind the wheel of a new Ram 1500 Quad Cab from only $359 per month during the Ram Truck Month. Don't miss the Spring Sell-Down Sales Event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Spring Sell-Down savings? Douglas does!
And we're back here at Douglas Jeep for our final segment of tonight's 941 Sports Zone, and it's our ever popular "What's Bugging Me" section. To start with, Coach, you want to go first? Or
Let me go first.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What's bugging John Peacock today?
Yeah. What's bugging me is Dion, and I'm a big Dion fan and have been watching him growing up. But him, how he's gone into Colorado and basically how he entered and said, that I'm bringing my people and I'm doing this and doing that. One thing I feel like he didn't know really why they were bad. It could have been they had bad coaches.
Right.
It could have been there was a bad culture there.
Sure.
This past weekend they went into their spring game with 4 defensive linemen. They had 30 people go to the portal in this last portal opening.
Yes.
Which opened. And for me to think that they're going to fill that with 30 quality people that also enter the portal at this juncture, I just don't see it happening. I don't see this turning into a good season. I don't know when it will turn around, but I think it was a bad approach. In my opinion, I think that kids are going to college, and I think that you as a coach and coaches in general, if you are that person, I think you need to love those kids, and somebody gave them that opportunity to play there, and you need to love them, and you need to coach them and make them better. That's your job. That's why you're hired. That's why you're paid that money.
Right.
In my opinion.
I agree. I think that's great. I think right now he is full Coach Prime. He's putting on the cowboy hat. He's playing he's doing the show. He's a full on ringleader at this point. And you're right. Watching the exodus of all these players to be replaced by a bunch of guys who played a level down. I mean, his son's a good player, but he played all his football against subpar or lower level competition. So he's gonna see it when he gets to this level for sure.
It says a lot when at their final game at Jackson State, their in-house DJ was playing songs that were basically wishing him goodbye. Because they kind of just seemed like they got tired, even though he did so much for the program. Kind of seemed like they get tired of the shtick. Now, would this have been any different at any other program? Do you think his approach would have been different, say, if he was – because USF was in there. Like, USF was there. Do you think it would have been different at USF versus Colorado?
No, I think USF was just as unsuccessful as Colorado, and I think it would have been the same way. And that's what I'm talking about. So – As a high school coach, so if I have a player at USF and you got a coach that comes in and says, well, you know what, we're getting rid of you guys. You're no good. Well, that may not be the case. Maybe that player was good, and maybe he just didn't have the right coaching.
Right.
But my thing is, you're getting paid, upwards of 7 figures. Your job is to coach them. Hire good coaches and coach them. That's your job. Well,
he never met them and told them that they're on their way out. I mean, the day he got hired, he rolled in and said, hey, some of you guys will be packing your bags without even really getting to meet them.
I think the quote was, I'm bringing my luggage, and it's Louis.
Right.
If I remember correctly, I'm bringing my luggage. Like, what does that say to a kid?
Yeah, I mean, it's a paid, it's a hired.
It's coming back to bite him right now, I believe.
It will. I think it will. You're right. All right. Onward, Josh Grant. What's bugging you?
I think the thing that's bugging me the most are the old timers who are not getting into the new kind of baseball rules and how the game is going. I mean, listen. As someone who has worked all these games, I could pencil in a spring training game for 3 hours every time. My wife would ask, what time are you going to be home? Well, starts at 1:05, game ends at 4:05. I'll be out of here. I'll be home by 5 o'clock. Now with games going 2 hours, 10 minutes, 2 hours, 15, the longest game I think we've had this season, 2 hours and 40 minutes. And with the pitch clock, being able to watch that tick down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it brings a whole different element to baseball. And I think there's always going to be some apprehension with new rules and new strategies, but this right now I think could bring all these new rules, and the way that the game is being played now can bring baseball back into the national pastime it was, in the same way that the home run chase did between McGwire and Sosa.
I think you're right.
When's it going to trickle down?
What do you mean, to like college? And what do you mean?
College and high school.
I don't know if it can. I think because those are more developmental leagues, I don't think you can put a pitch clock in high school. In college, yes, potentially, but they also still use aluminum bats. So, are they going to go to wood bat? Either way, I think it's bringing the fun back.
If it stays, it's going to trickle down.
Yeah, it has to.
It could.
Just like the NBA, there was a shot clock, and then everything trickled down. 3-point line, everything's going to trickle down eventually.
You look at, and again, not trying to be biased, but you look at this Rays team, you look at the swagger they have. They not only have the best record in baseball, you got Randy Arozarena. They have a new section out in left field called Randy's. I can't remember the name of it. It's $49. You get a T-shirt, you get a drink every time he hits home run. I mean, their marketing is all in, and it's all on. This guy was a throw-in.
Right.
This guy was a throw-in in a
throw-in.
trade.
Yeah.
And just the amount of excitement that is around not only this team but around baseball in general. Everybody now has to get on board, because it's going to only mean good things for the future. It's only going to mean good things for the next generations of players.
Gotcha. All right, that's what's bugging Josh Grant. What's bugging me, I had one, and then yesterday something kind of hit me, or actually today a little bit, that bothered me. I'll start with that one first. I am tired, very tired of whatever sport, basketball, football, whatever it may be, where the guy comes on, looks at the camera and says, "You didn't believe. We are the only people who believe. Nobody picked us." Travis Kelce said it in the Super Bowl, looked like an idiot as far as I was concerned. Then you get Jimmy Butler last night, throws in 56. I mean, all-time game for all-time games. And the first thing he says is, "Nobody believed." Well, you know why nobody believed? Because you're the 8th seed. Because they're supposed to not believe in the 8th seed
Right.
beating the 1 seed.
Right.
Okay? Why you got to call everybody else out and tell them how they didn't care, like they didn't know anything? No, they knew a lot more than you did. Okay? They didn't trust you because you didn't perform. Okay? It's just that simple. And Travis Kelce, guess what, Travis? Some people are going to pick the other team. Guess what? That's what happens. That's why you well, man, everybody's got Kansas City, so I'm right. No, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but don't be calling out every sports guy, everybody about why nobody believes in you. Okay? Because some people just don't, and sometimes it's warranted to not believe in them, especially when you're the 8th seed in the playoffs. My other thing was this. Traditional stuff, there's always some cool things in and around golf. And we just watched the Masters. Phenomenal, right? Phenomenal. The LPGA doesn't have a lot of things that they can put their mark on. They're like, hey, we got to watch that LPGA. They had one thing. It was the old Dinah Shore Classic. Okay, this was a tournament that was held in the cooler months, but out in Palm Springs, California, and it was the kind of the birth what perpetuated the LPGA to have the success they're having currently. And they had a tradition there where the winner would jump in a pond, which was sort of a chlorinated, made-up pond because they don't have lakes in Palm Springs, and they would go in there and it was a tradition. It was jumping in the pond. Well, big money came along and bought up the sponsorship to this tournament and moved it to Houston, Texas, okay, on a golf course that could be any golf course in any place in the country. It had has no scenery like Palm Springs did. Had nothing. They just took it and made it just a very bland looking, very poor looking thing on TV, and they decided to keep their tradition of the pond jump into a alligator and snake infested lake, and they were going to put nets around the area they were going to jump in and put a little dock with the chevron on it, and they asked the women, "Are you going to jump in?" And half of them like, "There's snakes in there. I'm not going to go in there." But they manufactured to try to maintain a tradition. Why wouldn't you just be the sponsor, Chevron, and keep it at the place that had all this tradition? Why you had to move it over some dollars and cents, and why you would even want to move it. I would want to put my brand on that moment. I put the Chevron emblem right in the middle of that fake lake, and I get more coverage and more things out of it. So I just think that kind of it bothered me as to why they would do that and try to recreate something that's now it's disappeared. So two things bugging me. And
is he allowed to have two things bugging him?
Well, the first one was the LPGA, but I figured I wanted to throw that Jimmy Butler thing in there. It kind of bothered me.
Okay.
All right. Back over to the left side of the table. Predictions from John Peacock.
Predictions. So I'm going to make a pretty solid prediction here. That's I'm going. If we've been talking about drafts, so I'm going to say first round, 14 defensive players taken, 17 offensive players taken.
Okay. Gotcha. I can see it. No doubt about it. It's usually pretty split down the middle. Sometimes they get a little crazy, but it's usually split down the middle. Josh Grant, your prediction.
Well, you want me to be your baseball guy, and I would love to come back. I appreciate you guys having me. So mine is going to be a long game kind of bold prediction.
Good.
So looking at as the season goes on, and this is not a homer pick. This is just seeing what I'm seeing. Right now, the favorite to win the AL MVP is Shohei Ohtani. In Vegas, it's plus 125.
Rightfully so.
Mike Trout, this is the difference. Mike Trout, 750. Aaron Judge, 1,000. I will make the bold prediction that the AL MVP this year will be Randy Arozarena from the Tampa Bay Rays. Right now, he is at plus 6,500. So if you're in a legal betting state, which you guys are killing it on social media, so everybody can see it around the world, you can probably place a bet. It's not in Florida, but plus 6,500 for Arozarena to win the AL MVP.
So we had that question on our first show. You cannot sports gamble in Florida, right?
No.
That's what I thought.
Okay, so I never did my follow-up on that either, so there it is. Yeah.
There's our answer from our first show. You
can pretty much go any. I think
or
there's
legal,
only three
you can,
states.
But not legally.
Yeah.
Right.
Not legally.
You go into Nashville, where the NFL draft was a couple of years ago. Remember that zoo? Literally right on Broadway. There's a Land Shark sports book. You just walk right in and place a bet.
There you go. All right, for me, I already have the one out there, but which is the 4 quarterbacks picked in the first 10 picks of the NFL draft in the first round of the draft. My next one is kind of simple. I didn't want to make it too complicated, but the Buccaneers at number 19 will 100% draft an offensive lineman. I'll even go so far to say, if just as a little extra, that if he's there, the tackle from Georgia, Broderick Jones, I think his name is. I'm going to dish it, but he will be the guy if he's there. But the Bucs will no doubt draft an offensive. They have to get a tackle. Jettisoning Donovan Smith out of there. I think Wirfs will stay at right tackle, and I think they'll draft a left tackle. Does he start right away? Yeah, I think he'll start right away because Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield can run around a lot, unlike Tom Brady, and they'll get him to cut his teeth and be the guy. So there you go. You have the Bucs will draft an offensive tackle, offensive lineman in the first round at 19. With that, we're done for tonight. I want to thank our guest, Josh Grant.
Thank you, guys.
Regular baseball contributor and other things as well. John Peacock, as well as my co-host for tonight. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for watching us tonight. We will be back here next week on the 941 Sports Zone. See you then.